What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Friday, August 1st, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. So it looks like Russia has armed their dead hand system, which is an auto-launching nuclear weapons system, also known as the perimeter system. And this is all because of a recent social media exchange between Trump and Medvedev. Medvedev is the former president of Russia. Trump basically threatened Medvedev, and then Medvedev responded by saying that Russia has the dead hand system. So this is very, very concerning. And if you don't know what the dead hand system is, basically Russia during the Cold War, specifically in the late 1980s, as a response to Ronald Reagan's Star Wars initiative, where the U.S. would put space-based nuclear weapons that could survive a first strike from the Soviet Union, Russia developed a nuclear weapons auto-launching system that basically uses a variety of sensors throughout Russia. And so these sensors are seismic sensors, air pressure sensors, radiation sensors, and they're all fed into a computer that's located underneath a mountain in the Urals, the Ural mountain range in Russia. It's known as Kazvinsky Kamyen, and that's just like a giant bunker underneath a several thousand foot tall mountain. And so this system sits there in that bunker underneath Kazvinsky Kamyen, and it takes the data from the sensors. Once it's activated, if there's some kind of an escalation, Russia can activate it, and the computer becomes active, and it takes data from the air pressure sensors, which determine if there's any blast waves. Then they have seismic sensors that would determine if there's any bombs landing on Russia in different areas. And then they have the radiation sensors, okay? And so it would use all that data and determine if an actual attack happened. And then if the computer determined that there was an attack, the computer would immediately try to contact senior leadership in Russia, okay? The president, top generals, etc. And there would be a certain period of time where if the senior leadership did not respond back to the computer would figure that the senior leadership was destroyed or killed, incapacitated, whatever, and then the computer would auto-launch all of Russia's nuclear arsenal at predetermined targets, okay? So that's how the dead hand system works, and it was built in the late 80s as a response to Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative. So I want to read to you what Trump wrote on Truth Social. He wrote, "I don't care what India does with Russia. They can take their dead economies down together for all I care. We have done very little business with India. Their tariffs are too high, among the highest in the world. Likewise, Russia and the U.S. do almost no business together. Let's keep it that way. And tell Medvedev, the failed former president of Russia, who thinks he's still president, to watch his words. He's entering very dangerous territory." Wow. Okay, so he says Russia and the U.S. does almost no business together. Let's keep it that way, and tell Medvedev he's entering very dangerous territory and to watch his words. Wow. Okay, very, very serious. And then in response, Medvedev said about Trump's threats against me on his personal network, Truth, which he banned from operating in our country. If some words of the former president of Russia caused such a nervous reaction from such a formidable U.S. president, it means Russia is right in everything and will continue on its own path. And about the dead economy of India and Russia and the entering dangerous territory, well, let him remember his favorite movies about the Walking Dead, as well as how dangerous the non-existent in nature dead hand can be. Okay, wow. So some really strong words here from Medvedev. It all started when Medvedev said that Trump was going down the Sleepy Joe road, and that Trump placing sanctions on Russia and flooding Ukraine with weapons would cause a war with the U.S. and Russia. Okay, basically threatening Trump and the U.S. And then Trump responded with this, saying Medvedev is entering very dangerous territory. And then Medvedev said that the dead hand system can be very dangerous. And he mentions The Walking Dead, basically a nuclear apocalypse. Okay, so very, very serious. And it looks like the Putin and Trump bromance is over. I want to play some clips for you of Trump and what he has been saying recently, but let me play this one for you. He did an interview recently.
It's too bad. We have wonderful conversations, and then I go home, I turn on the news, and I see that Kiev has just been bombed. It's just been ripped into. Can't do that stuff. I mean, I said, wait a minute, I just spoke to him 4 hours ago, and now all of a sudden they're sending bombs into Kiev and other places.
And the First Lady is very aware of all that, isn't she?
Well, she is. And look, we know Putin, and she likes him. And I look, it is what it is. You get along with people. I got along with him very well.
Well, you have to.
And, well, ideally you have to. It's a lot better if you have to. But she said, it's too bad. They just bombed Kiev. And I had just spoken to him that afternoon, and I come home and I find out that people are laying all over the streets that are dead. And so it's a tough situation. I'm disappointed in him.
So that's what Trump said. And here we have Marco Rubio talking to Brian Kilmeade earlier yesterday on Thursday. I want you to listen to what he had to say.
I'm not so interested in talking anymore. He talks, we have such nice conversations, such respectful and nice conversations, and then people die the following night with a missile going into a town and hitting, recently, I guess, the nursing home, but they hit other things. Whatever they hit, people die.
So he's obviously changed dramatically since he first took office. What do you think is going to happen after 10 days, Mr. Secretary?
Well, first of all, let me say the president has waited over 6 months now and given the best efforts possible. We continue to engage with the Russian side as early this week on Monday or Tuesday. We had a full conversation with them as well, not with Putin, but with some of Putin's top people in hopes of arriving at some understanding on a path forward that would lead to peace. And we've not seen any progress on that. And I think what bothers the president the most is he has these great phone calls where everyone sort of claims, we'd like to see this end if we can find a way forward. And then he turns on the news and another city's been bombed, including those far from the front lines. So at some point, he's got to make a decision here about, how much to continue to engage in an effort to do ceasefires if one of the two sides is not interested in one. So the president has a lot of options. He has options, as everyone knows, to sanction secondary sales of oil, secondary sanctions on oil sales of Russian oil, which is a huge part of their revenue. There's sectoral banking sanctions that would also be very powerful. Again, I think our hope is to avoid that and to sort of figure out a way that we can get the fighting to stop. We think that's the best path forward. We're open to some different paths, but the best path forward is to have the shooting stop and the talking start. But so far, there's not been what we feel, at least, sincere interest on the Russian side in achieving that objective. So we'll continue to be available and willing to participate in something like that if it becomes available. But obviously, the president's not going to wait forever.
So Medvedev, the former president, threatened our country and said, basically, your ultimatums, that's going to lead to confrontation, if I could just paraphrase. And he says, with your country. And Donald Trump last night went back at Medvedev and said, tell Medvedev, the failed former president of Russia, who thinks he's still president, to watch his words. He's entering very dangerous territory. Do you take him seriously, Medvedev?
Well, you can't ignore anything someone's saying, and you always wonder, is that approved as... but he basically is not a relevant player in Russian politics. He's not a decision maker. He's not in any of the meetings or conversations we've ever had. If you recall, he was the president there for about 4 years.
Okay, so I will disagree with Marco Rubio on that. Medvedev is Putin's best friend, and also Medvedev is the head of Russia's Security Council, so he's the equivalent of like a shadow vice president. If there were a vice president in Russia, it would be Medvedev. Okay, so I don't agree with Rubio there. But Rubio also warns that Russia could use tactical nukes. And I want to remind you guys that Rubio was on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Okay, I believe it was the Intelligence Committee. So he had access to all of the top secret information on all these different parts of the world, including Russia. So he knows a lot about different parts of the world, and that's one of the reasons why Trump told him to be the national security advisor in addition to the Secretary of State. He's actually a dual role figure in the Trump administration. But let me just play for you what Rubio said about Russia using tactical nukes.
That's not I think what you worry more about is not an all-out war with Russia. I think what you worry more about is a skirmish or a miscalculation that leads to the start of conflict, because that escalates. Since the Russians are not very good at conventional weaponry, they would almost invariably have to rely on some other means, like a tactical nuclear weapon on the battlefield, to sort of escalate in an effort to de-escalate a fight. So you would worry about that, but we shouldn't even think about it, because that's not something that is...
Okay, so he's clearly concerned about Russia using tactical nukes. And what's interesting is we have a U.S. presidential doomsday plane that went from Strategic Command in Omaha, Nebraska to D.C., and what's interesting is it did this big like W here in Indiana and Ohio, and it looked like it was going to land at Wright-Patterson, but it ended up going to D.C. This is very unusual, and it was up in the air late at night. So this is clearly a sign that the situation with Ukraine is not getting any better, and the situation with the U.S. and Russia and our relations with Russia are continuing to deteriorate. And we're now hearing that the Russian attack last night on the capital of Ukraine has created a death toll of 26 people killed in Russia's massive attack with as many as 300 drones. And for the first time, Russia has used over 6,000 drones in a single month. Okay, 6,000 drones in July. Absolutely insane. And looks like Russia has seized control of the critical town or city of Chasiv Yar in eastern Ukraine, so that's not a good sign either. Trump is apparently going to be sending Steve Witkoff to Russia again, maybe one last chance to give Russia a chance at peace one last time. I don't think it's going to go over well. And Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, is on his way to Russia. He's going to be meeting with Putin today at the Kremlin. This is an emergency meeting with the president of Belarus and the president of Russia. And what's interesting is just a couple of days ago, a drone flew over the capital of Lithuania at an altitude of just 650 feet over Vilnius, and it came from Belarus. And then the next day, Belarus claimed that a drone from NATO crashed over Minsk, which is the capital of Belarus. So Belarus is up to something, and we are hearing that Russia and Belarus are going to be doing massive military drills along the border of the Baltics and Poland this September with 150,000 troops. Okay, that kind of... And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video. Reminds you of the way Russia invaded Ukraine. If you remember, they moved all their troops to the border of Ukraine and they said it was an exercise, and then suddenly, boom, they invaded. So this is very concerning. There was also a Russian patrol ship in Estonia's territorial waters a couple of days ago, earlier this week. And it lingered there for 30 minutes. We know Russia violated Poland's airspace several times with fighter jets in the last few months. So the situation over there is escalating, and it looks like Russia is about to invade the Baltics. And the head of Ukraine's military intelligence said that Russia plans to spend $1 trillion on rearmament over the next 11 years, which would be the biggest military buildup in Russia since the USSR. Wow. And the Senate committee has approved a $1 billion Ukraine aid package in the $852 billion defense bill. And Germany is preparing well over 60 military procurement orders for parliamentary approval by the end of the year as part of an overreaching plan to return the German military to its Cold War military levels seen during the 1980s. Germany will be building 8,500 infantry fighting vehicles and 20 Eurofighter Typhoons, according to the German defense minister. Wow, over 8,000 infantry fighting vehicles. It sounds like they're preparing for a massive ground war, probably in the Baltics. And Trump said yesterday that BRICS is basically a group of countries that are anti the United States. India is a member of that, if you can believe it. It's an attack on the dollar, and we're not going to let anybody attack the dollar. So Trump is not down with BRICS. Trump signed an executive order placing a 50% tariff on Brazil and a 25% tariff on India. And former Republican Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, stated yesterday on Fox News that Russian President Vladimir Putin is soon going to have to realize he is not going to win the war in Ukraine, adding that if the U.S. decides to get serious, the number of casualties that Russia will face is going to be terrifying. Okay, so this could potentially push Putin to use tactical nukes. If he feels that he's going to lose, he's not going to give up. He'll win by any means necessary, even if he has to use tactical nukes. And according to the Speaker of the Ukrainian Parliament, Ruslan Stefanchuk, Ukrainian drones will soon be sold in the U.S. and the armed forces will receive new American weapons. This fall, Ukraine's defense industry is set to unveil new developments that will surprise the world. So basically, the U.S. is going to get Ukrainian drones, and in return, Ukraine will receive American weapons. And the Ukrainian defense minister said Ukraine is close to having their own ballistic missiles. So that's huge news. And Sweden, Spain, Switzerland, and France have vacated their embassies in Iran for an unknown reason. Apparently, Russia warned Iran that the U.S. and Israel are preparing for possible attacks again. And we know that there was some activity outside of the Isfahan nuclear site in Iran. They recently reopened some tunnels, and the Isfahan facility, if you remember, was not hit by bunker busters. It was only hit by tomahawks. So whatever was under the mountain there in Isfahan is still there. And Ukraine is constructing major defense lines stretching from Kharkiv to Zaporizhia to counter Russia's summer offensive, according to the Wall Street Journal. The Ukrainian military is urgently building a triple line of fortifications, including trenches, dragon's teeth, anti-tank obstacles, and underground shelters. Nearly 300 kilometers of defenses are being built with 1,000 3,000 kilometers of defenses are being built, with 1,000 workers now digging trenches twice as fast as last year. Wow. And Ukrainian intelligence hacked into Russian-installed servers of the Crimean government and uncovered evidence of mass abductions of Ukrainian children from the occupied territories. And Moldovan President Maya Sandu stated that Russia is preparing to intervene in the upcoming parliamentary elections in Moldova in an attempt to gain control over the country. The elections are scheduled for September. And the U.S. has imposed sanctions on a major shipping network accused of transporting oil and petroleum products from Iran and Russia to buyers across the globe. And a U.S. Navy F-35 crashed near Naval Air Station Lemoore in California. The pilot safely ejected. And there was a radioactive wasp nest found in the Savannah River nuclear site in South Carolina. Apparently the nest and the wasps had 10 times the normal background radiation. And that just shows you that there's so many of these nuclear facilities across this country. Some of them may be right in your town, in your area, in your state, and some of them are small. You know, the United States during the Cold War, they had a lot of these little test reactors all over the country. Some of them were really small, and they were just doing experimental nuclear research in remote areas far away from civilization is typically where they put them. And then they shut them down, let's say, at the end of the Cold War. Some of them had issues and they were leaking. And there's, hundreds and hundreds of them across this country. And that's just an example of one of them. Okay, so, you should do some research in your area and see if you have any sites like that. You can go to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission website to find them, and the EPA as well. One of the big ones is the Hanford site in Washington, which is like just a huge repository for nuclear weapons, and that's just like a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. And the FBI director Kash Patel has reportedly discovered thousands of documents related to the Russia collusion hoax inside burn bags stored in a secret room at the FBI headquarters. It turns out these documents were found in burn bags and may confirm accusations of political manipulation of data during the Obama administration. Rumors suggest that the Obama administration allegedly falsified data about Russia's interference in the election to create a narrative about Trump's ties to the Kremlin. So we'll have to wait and see how serious this is. This could just be a distraction away from the Epstein situation. And Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the UN General Assembly this coming September. And the family of Epstein abuse survivor Virginia Giuffre is urging Trump not to pardon the deceased sex offender's accomplice. Ghislaine Maxwell is a monster who deserves to rot in prison. And if you recall, they gave her limited immunity already. And China built 27 bases in the South China Sea, some of which are capable of hosting nuclear bombers. 27 bases, guys. That is an absurd amount. And that's the latest breaking news that I have. I wanted to also just give you an update on the tsunami situation. So the largest tsunami waves that were recorded were in Russia, 15-foot waves recorded there. There were 7-foot waves in parts of Hawaii, and then there was a 4-foot wave in Crescent City, which thankfully didn't cause any major damage, except one of the docks over there got damaged. So looks like we dodged a bullet. And there's also a massive volcano now erupting in Russia's Kamchatka region, which is where that 8.8 magnitude quake was just a few hours after the Kluchevsky volcano erupted, and there's ash plumes now up to 20,000 feet in the air. And we also have the tropics heating up right now with multiple tropical cyclones in the eastern Pacific. We have Tropical Storm Gil, which has maximum sustained winds of 60 miles an hour. We have a disturbance right behind Gil we have another disturbance here south of Hawaii, and then we have Tropical Storm Iona, the remnants of Hurricane Iona, which became a major hurricane. So things are really picking up. The Atlantic is quiet right now, but wanted to let you guys know if there's any major hurricanes that are going to hit the U.S., I'm going to try to do some on-the-ground live coverage from the impacted areas this year. We'll see if I can do that or not. I'm going to try to give you guys some alternative coverage. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is My Patriot Supply. Guys, My Patriot Supply is doing a massive sale on their 3-month emergency food supply. You can get 3 months of emergency food, 2,000 calories a day for just $500. That's $200 off their normal price with free shipping included. This food has a shelf life of 25 years, and it's a variety of different types of food. So if you use the link preparewithNYPrepper.com, you can save $200 on their 3-month emergency food supply. The link is in the description below this video. That's preparewithNYPrepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video.